when I call your name. Every fear is banished from here. When you call my name, I'll come running, running to you. And you say, come to me. Spread your wings. Catch the wind, he's carrying you.
Shalom and welcome to Jerusalem Dispatch ICEJ UK, that brings you a closer connection to Israel and the Jewish people through the ministry that is the International Christian Embassy Jerusalem UK. And in this month's programme, we shall be discussing the social media war against Israel and how we can empower young people to stand for Israel. And in this programme today, I'm joined by Jacob Greaves, who's part of the ICEJ UK team, working on the social media, together with Patrick Hemus as well. So guys, welcome to the programme, and thanks for bringing a kind of younger, fresher feel to the programme, which is very cool. So I'll start off with you, Jacob. Can you just tell your story, because yours is quite a remarkable story. So share with us something about your Jewish roots. I mean, you've got your Jewish roots that you can date back to the Ottoman Empire, of your Jewish ancestors living in the land of Israel during the Ottoman Empire. You made Aliyah yourself back in 2015. So share with us your Jewish and Israeli story.
Yeah, so I grew up with my dad taking me to Israel when I was born, when I was 2, when I was 13, and I always understood that we had that family connection there. Basically, my grandmother was born in Haifa in 1925, and she served in the IDF during the 48 War. She was 18, 19 at the time, and during that time, obviously, we had the British Mandate there. She began at that time a relationship with my granddad, who was a British businessman who'd been sent over to the British Mandate at that time to set up a factory to bring oranges to the UK after the World War II. So they met, they developed this relationship, and they ended up having 3 children over there after Israel was formed in 1948. But at that time, there was so much uncertainty in the country. In 48, in the 50s, they decided to move to the UK at that point in time with the 3 small children, one of which being my dad. So my dad was a dual citizen, grew up as a dual citizen, felt very connected to Israel. And then I was able to gain my Israeli citizenship through him. I decided to make Aliyah in 2015 because of that connection I felt to the country, and we'd always kept very good connections with the family there. So I lived there for 7 years until 2022, formed some great friendships, great relationships with people. I continue to work with people who lived there, and it's very much a big part of my heart. And my first son was born in Jerusalem, and he lives here now, little Asher, I hope to take him back there soon.
Amazing. Also, just unpack for us as well how you came to faith in Yeshua as well. And to be a Messianic is amazing.
Yeah. So my dad is a Jewish believer. So I grew up in a home where I had a Christian mom and a dad who was a Messianic believer. So we always had both aspects, both things kind of going together in the household. And then when I moved to Israel, I was able to connect more with people who are Messianic Jews and live that. It was really life-giving, because I hadn't had a lot of that in my life growing up in the UK. Even though we had that in the home, there wasn't a lot for me outside of that. So when I went to Israel and started connecting with all the Kehillah that are there, and all the Messianic believers that are there, it was really, really, really amazing.
Yeah, thanks so much for sharing, Jake, and that's quite a heritage you've got there. So thank you for sharing. And Patrick, it's great to have you on the programme. Now, a lot of our viewers will know your father, John Hemus. He's been on this programme and on the Middle East Report as well. But just share with us how you came to faith in Yeshua, but also how the Lord gave you a love for Israel and the Jewish people.
Yeah, I mean, I was born in a preacher's home, so, church is all I've ever known, Sometimes we do Sunday morning, Sunday night, Monday night, Tuesday night, revivals all week, and you're sleeping under the pews and whatnot. So that was all I'd ever known, and, some of my teenage years, there was some really backslidden in heart, essentially. But I thank God for the grounding my parents gave me and always showed me that there's an open door, and you know where that door is, and you know how to get back. And my personal faith really started developing in my late teens and early 20s, and the Lord delivered me from things and helped me through things and taught me things, and the reality of His presence and His nearness and His hand on my life just became more and more apparent. And He's kept me through so much and blessed me so much that it's amazing. And my love for Israel and the Jewish people, as I started to hunger after God and study Scripture seriously, you just keep seeing more and more Jewishness. And the more I started to study the Jewishness of the Bible, the more I started to unlock of Scripture. And then you start to understand that Jesus, it sounds silly, but how Jewish He was, because He is Jewish.
Absolutely.
Then my dad was discipled by a Jewish Christian, so that fondness was always there. And then, of course, going to Israel, where the Bible just turns 3D, and you're walking around going, oh my goodness, Mount Olives is there, and then there's the Eastern Gate, and wow, it's all here. So it really came to life in a new dimension.
Excellent. And tell us, Jacob, how you came involved with the ministry that is the International Christian Embassy, Jerusalem, UK, and your role within the ministry, particularly at this very vital time in Israel's history, where we know that Israel is under attack and at war against this genocidal terrorist organisation that is Hamas, and potentially could be entering into a new conflict against Hezbollah in the north.
Yeah, when I first moved back from Israel, I got connected with Dave Elms. Dave Elms is someone that I had known kind of when I was growing up also in Liverpool, and we'd always been connected in regards to Israel, and sometimes my parents had brought us to events that the ICEJ were running, or others from the ICEJ. And so I kind of knew of him, and we got connected when I moved back, and we met, and he shared with me about the work that ICEJ are doing in the UK. And I'd also already was aware of ICEJ in Israel as well, because we'd crossed paths a little bit there. And obviously with my heart for Israel, and I really wanted, when we moved back to the UK, to still have a way to be involved and still have a way to feel like I was connected in. And we just stayed in conversation for around a year, and when we first talked, we were still in the throes of having moved with so many things going on. But around a year later, I got back in touch with him and just kind of explained a little bit about what I do in terms of work and where my passions are, and whether that might be something that would fit well or be needed at this time with ICEJ. And from there, we began to work together, and it's been really great to be a part of things since then.
Yeah, because both of you are responsible for literally transforming the kind of social media side of the ministry, so which is great, and doing great work on this program as well, and getting it posted up onto YouTube as well. And Patrick, I can't forget the very emotional video of seeing you work in a Holocaust survivor's home and help refurbish their home. Share with us what that experience was like, and was that your first entry into the ministry that is the International Christian Embassy, Jerusalem, UK?
Well, actually, the entry into ICEJ was later, because when we had booked our flights and committed to go and put everything together, we didn't even know who the ICEJ were. my dad just got some email about this thing that needed some work, and he said, well, I'm a builder, and let's put a team together and go. So, I'll talk about the Holocaust home, but we did the project, came home, and then David Elms, we found out, someone said, oh, I heard people from your church, from David Elms' church, did a project. And he went, no one from our church went. And they said, well, someone from Liverpool went, a group of people from a church. He said, I have no idea who they are. So then about a month after we got back, we get a knock on our door, and David Elms is standing there going, who are you, and what were you doing at the Holocaust home? Obviously not like that, but. So then he started to explain who they were, and they've got a branch in the UK, so we started to get more and more involved. But the experience of the home was being able to bless Holocaust survivors by just doing some renovations to their apartments. It's been one of the highlights of my life. And our friend speaks fluent German and Dutch, so he was able to talk to the German and Dutch speaking Holocaust survivors and get real info and translate between us. And we talked to one survivor who had been sent on multiple death marches, and where they're eating lunch just crying as she's sharing, and it was what an experience.
And Jacob, tell us about the exciting conferences coming up in London that features the international Bible teacher Malcolm Hedding, who is the guest speaker, and how important it is for Christians living in London and the South East, and how they can attend this important conference to give a real update on what God is doing in Israel right now.
Absolutely. I think in the current context of things, as things are heating up in Israel and things don't look like they're slowing down right now, I think it's even more important that we get together and we grow and we learn about what's happening in Israel, and the opportunity to listen to a speaker like Malcolm Hedding, someone who was the executive director of ICEJ for 11 years. I think that's really, really important. Just for us all to grow in understanding of the role of Israel and the role of the church in this real challenging time that we're in.
Absolutely. And Patrick, just share with us how vital it is that Christians really do support Israel and the Jewish people, particularly as Israel's at war. We also see that the drumbeats of war are beating loudly when it comes to a potential conflict with Hezbollah in southern Lebanon. The Iranians are threatening rockets and missiles. The situation is pretty dire. This is now a real vital time for Christians to support Israel. Share how they can do that through the ministry that is ICEJ UK.
Sure, yeah, the way they can do that through ICEJ is attending events, sharing social media posts, getting the word out there online. And there's plenty of causes that the ICEJ are always doing that we can give to. I think it's really important that young people can feel very overwhelmed and they're on their own, they're insignificant, even if they feel to make a stand and say something. So joining with an organization that has traction and momentum already, it's a lot more helpful, and you feel a part of something bigger than yourself doing this.
Excellent. And Jacob, of course, coming up in October is the Feast of Tabernacles. There was a lot of speculation that it would actually be cancelled this year because of Israel's war against Hamas in Gaza, but the leadership of the ministry in Jerusalem decided to go ahead with it. Just share with us how important it is to actually visit Israel, to show solidarity with Israel, particularly this time when it almost seems as if the whole world is turning against Israel, and to show and express that Christian love is so important.
Yeah, I think it's incredibly important. I think it's incredibly moving for Israelis, for people from around the world to come and to show support to them in this time. I think oftentimes they'll be surprised that you've come, but they'll be happy that you've come because it's just so encouraging for them. It's been such a difficult year. And as you said, some weren't even sure whether the Feast of Tabernacles was even going to take place. So I just think it's really important that people come and people show that support to the Israelis living there.
Yeah, and Patrick, what do you think it will mean for Israelis to see a British delegation going to the Feast of Tabernacles, particularly with the march in Jerusalem, to be walking on the streets of Jerusalem and waving the Union Jack flag in support and solidarity of Israel? What do you think that will mean for Israelis, and how important it is to show that love and support in such a practical but also such a visual way?
Yeah, I mean, Britain has historically been a a safe haven for the Jewish people and an ally of Israel. And prophetically speaking, the scriptures talk about all nations flowing up to Jerusalem and worshiping there. And I think it's majorly important for the UK to always make sure they are a part of fulfilling that prophecy. And for Israeli people and the Jewish people worldwide, the diaspora, to see that the UK is there beside her, supporting her, praying for her.
Excellent. So let's have a look at this promo for the Feast of Tabernacles 2024. And it's not too late. If you want to go to Israel with the International Christian Embassy, Jerusalem, UK, you can. Take a look.
Whoa, oh, 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 oh. Every tribe, every tongue, demand wherever your king shall come. End of sorrows, end of pain. Come and praise Creator's name.
October the 7th, 2023, changed the nation of Israel forever, leaving scars that will never fade. As we approach 1 year since that dark day, Israel still faces much uncertainty and unfair criticism all around the world. At this year's feast, the ICEJ invites Christians everywhere to come up to Jerusalem to show their love and support for Israel as never before. Come bear witness to the tragedy which struck this nation. Come represent your nation in standing with Israel and the Jewish people. Come encourage Israelis still trying to rebuild their lives. And come worship the Lord in Jerusalem with fellow believers from around the world. Feast 2024 will be unlike any other in Israel's history. Don't miss this chance to comfort Israel when they need us most.
In just a few months, this coming October, Israel will be marking 1 year since the great tragedy of October 7 last year. And we want to invite you to join us here in Jerusalem at that time to help encourage and comfort the people of Israel. The Christian Embassy will be hosting our annual Feast of Tabernacles celebration from the 16th through the 23rd of October. We will be gathering here in Jerusalem with Christians from around the world for this very timely prophetic feast. We will visit some of the worst hit areas on October 7 so you can witness firsthand what happened here in Israel. You will also meet Israelis who are starting to rebuild their lives and can encourage them on their road to recovery. We will also have a desert celebration in the lovely setting of Kfar Navdim and all our usual feast events here in Jerusalem, such as the colorful roll call of the nations and a special communion service at the Garden Tomb. But we're also going to gather here in Sacre Park and march through the streets of Jerusalem to express our love and support directly to the Jewish people. You want to be here. 1 year into this difficult conflict, there's no better time to come show your solidarity with Israel. Our feast registration is open. Visit feast.icej.org to learn more about how you can take part in this very special Feast of Tabernacles 2024.
Therefore, if you want to know more about how you can go to Israel and be part of the Feast of Tabernacles and part of the British delegation, which will provide not only insurance but also protection as well, do contact the office of ICEJ UK and you'll be able to do that through the website. Jacob, we are rapidly approaching the first anniversary of October the 7th. I mean, the world, Israel's a different place after October the 7th. The world is a different place. Just share with us where you were on October the 7th. When did you become aware of the horrors that were unfolding and how has it affected you personally?
Yeah, I mean, I remember on the morning seeing the news of what was happening. And obviously the initial reaction is absolute shock. Disbelief, because certain videos are surfacing and you're seeing things coming in dribs and drabs, and my first feeling was disbelief, honestly, because this is a country that I lived in, and when you live there and when you're there, you never feel like something like that could happen, not to that scale. So it really was a shock. And then I think right on the back of that, what was almost equally shocking was the reaction of the world within days, even before Israel had even responded in any kind of serious way. You had people climbing to the tops of buildings, raising Palestinian flags in solidarity with what Hamas had done. And that was equally shocking and terrifying, to be honest. I remember having an exchange with a friend, and they just said to me, well, they'd made a comment to me that was so far out from reality that I was like, is this just the way everybody thinks, And it was shocking for me to think that, like, my son was born there, and that if we lived there, we would be legitimate targets. And that's a shocking and scary thing to feel, that there's just such a lack of humanity in all of it. And then so much on the back of that, in the work that I do, so much of my work was in and around that since then, and has been for the last year. So it's been incredibly shocking, and I think, I think it's really changed for Israelis how they feel about their country and the security situation for them too. I spoke to someone recently who lives there, and they said that in an unprecedented way, the amount of Israelis that are leaving Israel right now, because of also how long it's gone on, and also what's happening in the north, and how there doesn't seem to be right now any kind of near end in sight. It's extremely shocking is probably the phrase I would use.
Yeah. And Patrick, what are your thoughts on the horrors that occurred on October the 7th and your kind of response to it?
Yeah, to see how comfortable Hamas were in carrying out the atrocities that they did. I think for anyone to try and justify and defend it, they need to take a long, hard look at their morals or lack thereof, because what they did is it was not resistance. What they did was not resistance. It was genocide. It was mutilation. They were out to strike fear into the heart of people for the sake of causing chaos.
Pure evil, absolutely. So let's have a look at this excellent news report by our friends at CBN that almost marks the first anniversary of the horrors of October the 7th. And this is a recent museum been opened to educate the world about what happened in Israel on that evil day.
The story of October 7th continues to unfold as new materials captured inside Gaza and Israeli territory are exposed. Vehicles, weapons, pictures, and clips, most of them made by Hamas and Islamic Jihad through their GoPros, help to tell the story of that fateful day. CBN News was given a look at some of the items. One of the most shocking things is how Israel's enemies instilled hatred of the Jews in the young for years, as displayed in these children's books. After the initial attack that morning, civilian mobs, including children and the elderly, joined the terrorists. Attackers came equipped with cameras on their foreheads and chests to document the rampage. On one of the terrorists killed in Ofakim, soldiers found a guide instructing them to focus on taking video of combat, killing, and captured prisoners, then explaining how to put all of it on social media. A 10-minute film compilation focuses on the attacks at the Nova Festival and in the communities surrounding the Gaza Strip. Some invaders carried UNRWA and international identification, while a handwritten note from one commander found in Sderot describes their enemy as an incurable disease that can only be dealt with by decapitation and uprooting hearts and livers. And an Arabic cheat sheet told how to say phrases in Hebrew like "take off your clothes." Many items add to the gruesome story, including kidnapping kits containing a stun gun similar to a taser, zip ties, a tourniquet, and drugs to calm down their victims. There was a Kalashnikov with a bayonet, machetes to cut off organs, which they did very systematically. There's a map of the layout of Kibbutz Be'eri, where more than 100 were killed and 30 taken hostage.
I really wish I could say that I was shocked, but unfortunately I'm not. Islamic fundamentalists, jihadists, have always said it's about, the Saturday people first and then the Sunday people. So first it's about killing the Jews, and then it's about coming for the Christians. Whatever we see that they try to inflict on us, we know that it's going to happen next in the Christian world.
Ari Gottesman also viewed the materials. After seeing them, he spoke of being moved by seeing plans which dated back years alongside the actual events.
Which means this wasn't just an overnight response to something. No, this was a methodological, planned, ongoing attack with not a focus on soldiers or military gains of strategic value, but rather just to sow terror, just to harm innocent people, to target people in their beds, in their homes, their pets.
Gedalia Bloom, director of the Heartland Initiative Public Diplomacy Program, says seeing the artifacts and physical evidence made him realize that this is not just a local conflict.
This is a global incident that had support from all over the world. Those people who are physically arming the Hamas terrorists, giving them the intelligence they need, and supporting them, whether it be UNRWA funding, Iranian intelligence. This should be seen as it really is, that this is a war against the West and Israel's at the front lines.
Bloom believes instead of trying to use this evidence to convince those who deny the attack, Israel should use it to bolster those who love and support Israel.
We need to stop playing defense and start playing offense and start winning more. That's also my big takeaway, is that we need to use this in order to strengthen our own resolve and to build better capabilities to strengthen Israel.
Julie Stahl, CBN News, Ramat HaSharon, Israel.
And I don't think the world can ever forget, and they shouldn't forget, what happened to Israel. Not only did Israel change, but the world changed on that day. And that's why it's imperative that we show that love and support for Israel, because our enemies are wanting to annihilate her. And what happened on October the 7th we haven't seen anything like that since the Holocaust, and that's the sheer magnitude and the scale of it. You guys are very much involved in social media, particularly your role, Jacob, for the Ministry of the ICEJ UK. But share with us what social media is and how enemies are using this internet platform to attack Israel, and also to erode Israel's moral standing in the world and giving a false and wrong perception of Israel that Generation Z and your generation, millennial generation, are having to face.
Yeah, that's the power of social media. It has the power to project a very broad, non-contextual message. There's a lot of good that you can do with that. The onus is on the viewer to go and find the context. The problem with the way that social media works in general is that the algorithm is not looking to give you a balanced point of view. It's looking to keep you watching as long as possible. So what tends to happen is, on the one side, people who are consuming a lot of content that's saying a certain thing will just end up getting more and more and more of that, and you end up in this bubble. And that's what's happened, and that's what often causes the biggest amount of misinformation and how fast it can spread. And it's also what causes the most division among people, and also just such a lack of context, and that's just where Gen Z and many other generations are at the moment, and that's how people consume the news and what's going on. But to be honest, I mean, even mainstream media you can't trust for the most part. I mean, the BBC can't even bring themselves to call Hamas terrorists.
No, they call them a group now.
They call them a group. That's where we're at in terms of the media in general, not just social media. But yeah, I think it's I think it's our responsibility to bring something different in that, and to try to bring the truth, and to also try to bring as much context and good context as we can.
Absolutely. And Patrick, why is social media so important for your organisation, for your generation, and why is it so important to have a voice on social media, whether it's Instagram or whether it's TikTok or whether it's X, formerly known as Twitter? Why is it so important for your generation to have a voice on these social media platforms?
Well, social media is revolutionary because it's a free way of expressing your views potentially to a large group of people, which the individual has never really had until social media came along. Before it was just kind of one-way advertising that you'd have to pay a lot of money to do. And now anyone, if they have consistently important, good, interesting things to say, can build a following of people. So there's a great opportunity to speak the truth consistently and make your voice heard. And especially with what Elon Musk is doing on X, I think it's really interesting because, as Jacob was talking about these algorithms, the team there are really working that you don't get trapped in a bubble of confirmation bias. You keep seeing opposing views. So there's a great opportunity there to have more of a balanced discussion than on the crazier algorithms that trap you in your own echo chamber.
Yeah, and Jacob, just share with us how the enemies of Israel, particularly the likes of the Iranians and also Hamas as well, and other Islamists, are using social media to spread hatred and lies against Israel that is really fueling this rise of Jew hatred that is absolutely unprecedented at the current time.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I mean, as Patrick mentioned, people do get trapped in an echo chamber of content, and there are many organizations and players that are creating content that misrepresents or just downright lies about the situation, presenting footage with a caption, that evokes a certain response, and it has such power. It really moves people, and people know that. People use social media to their advantage to encourage people to protest, to go out there on the streets, and that's what's happened. I said, I think there's such a lack of understanding in so many people. There's a lack of realization that you need to go and read some books, or you need to go a little bit deeper to understand the history, and people just don't want to do that. People get trapped in their own echo chamber, in a bubble, and end up holding a sign, holding a plaque, and they don't even know what it means, don't even know what the plaque means, which river, which sea. You've probably seen videos like that, and that's where people are at.
Right.
That's what people get trapped in.
So let's have a look at this excellent CBN news report saying the influence of social media is having on young people in the United States and around the world, turning them against Israel.
Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine!
These protests are gaining strength as the Israel-Hamas war deepens.
Pro-Palestinian movements like this have been sprouting up all over the world. Here at the March on Washington, there's upwards of 30,000 people here. That's according to a permit from the National Park Service. And their main call is to free Palestine.
Free, free Palestine!
We are an opponent of the political ideology of Zionism, which we view as a racist ideology that aims to justify the expulsion of indigenous people from their land, in this case, the Palestinian people.
Walter Smilarek with Answer Coalition helped coordinate the event. Still, a Harvard Caps Harris poll led by pollster Mark Penn shows an 84% majority of Americans support Israel over Hamas. Penn found a growing divide of support between generations,
as 95% of those over 65 supported Israel, and only 52% of those 18 to 24 supported Israel. I think the younger generation in 18 to 24 is likely to not to have been to Israel. They weren't even here for 9/11, not to have a set of personal experiences related to terrorism, and to be more susceptible to information that they hear online instead.
Social media experts go as far as labeling younger generations as digital natives because they get most of their news on social media. which has fewer safeguards on misinformation and bad actors manipulating public opinion.
Media shapes consciousness, and consciousness shapes culture.
Kinchlow sees platforms like Facebook, Instagram, and especially TikTok as digital battlegrounds vying for public opinion.
And so now you have this whole generation of kids, that's what they're used to when it comes to taking in news. They don't go fact check, they don't take another person's opinion.
Another major concern is Penn's polling data shows 16% of Americans side with Hamas terrorists.
And I think it's unjust and unfair to make this about Hamas every single time.
You would have thought that a terrorist attack against innocent civilians would engender sympathy for Israel, but somehow it seems to have weirdly stirred up a pot of anti-Semitism, at least in some areas and with some communities.
This is why Penn sees the greatest threat to America from this great divide being the anti-Semitism and violence that follows on both sides. Reporting in Washington, D.C., Brody Carter, CBN News.
And I think that excellent report really just shows us the importance of engaging in this battle, this social media battle for Israel, and putting the truth about Israel's righteous cause on so many social media platforms, and the ministry of the ICEJ UK is doing that. Patrick, we've also seen the fact that people don't trust mainstream media. People are now kind of relying on their own kind of media sources that are coming out from social media, even though that these are lies, they misrepresent what Israel is doing, and of course stirring up hatred. And of course what we've also seen is the influence particularly of AI technology to generate false images that is stirring up more hatred against Israel, more hatred against the Jewish people, that is resulting in huge rises of Jew hatred. Just share with us how social media is being used and deployed as a weapon against Israel, and this is a weapon that Israel needs to fight back against.
Yeah, I mean, especially with the rise of AI, you saw things coming out of things happening that just weren't the case. It was simply a prompt into DALL-E or ChatGPT image or video generator that they were making things appear as they wanted them to. So it does have to be combated against by speaking the truth consistently, and the goal is that you're not going to necessarily win over people that are so given to their clickbait and echo chambers, but people that are curious and on the fence and kind of trying to weigh things up because they see that everything's a bit too far on both sides. So it's really important that we reach for those people who are hungry for truth and who are hungry to learn from where they're at.
Excellent. And Jacob, both of you are very much involved in this fight against the lies, the misinformation, the hatred that we're seeing on so much of our social media platforms against Israel. But share with us what the important work you are doing to readdress that balance, to tell Israel's narrative, to defend Israel with truth and facts on the social media sites of the International Christian Embassy, Jerusalem, UK.
Absolutely. So, we have this show, the Jerusalem Dispatch, from which we are creating short form video as well. We have other reels that we're recording, really with a goal to bring truth and bring clarity for people. And as Patrick said, to draw people who might be curious, who might want to learn more, not to fall down into those echo chambers, but to hear something that gives them more understanding and more truth and more context, and hopefully push them into more longer form content as well that gives a more bigger view, a broader view. I think that's a big role, that's a good role that social media should play, is it's not that you stop there, but it takes you, it kind of is a little entry point into more content where you can learn more.
Yeah, and Patrick, share with us what you do, and particularly making the video shorts on YouTube. And you go in front of the camera and you make some very important small bullet points about Israel, about Israel's history, the politics. Share with us how that is important for your generation.
Yeah, I mean, knowing our millennial generation, Gen Z, and the younger crowds, I didn't want to get into anything too complex or deep or dry, or I want to keep things tight and sharp, and just, like I said, just reach for those people who they're not really sure and they're just looking and exploring. So, I went through a time where I had to pray and overcome some fear, because I'm going, man, I'm putting my face on camera here talking about Israel, and people don't seem to like Israel.
I've been doing it for years, I'm okay.
and then I started to consider, well, you know what, Simon's still here, and Ben Shapiro's still here, and I'm like, I'm not the center of the universe here. Let's join the fight.
Excellent. Well, I'm glad you're part of the fight, but also the International Christian Embassy Jerusalem is also a part of the fight. So let's see what they're doing in order to fight against the hatred on social media by putting the truth regarding Israel's war against Hamas.
Want to stay up to date with the latest developments in Israel?
Make sure to check out our weekly recap, where we give you the most important headlines every single Monday.
Follow us on our social media to stay notified.
Hello and shalom, everyone. This is David Parsons, one of the vice presidents and senior spokesman here at the International Christian Embassy Jerusalem, coming to you from our global headquarters in the Talpiot neighborhood of Jerusalem. We're just so glad everyone has joined us for this week's ICEJ weekly webinar. Welcome and shalom again, east, west, north, and south, everyone who has tuned in this week. This week we're covering a current affairs topic, and we have a very special guest. I'm so glad he's joined us, Hananya Naftali. He's a young Israeli social media influencer, pro-Israel, making Israel's case, and we're talking about the cyber battle for Israel. That's the title I gave it, and one of our translators was worried, oh, if it's cyber warfare and all are the technical terms that I won't know, but no, this is good old, in the trenches, fighting for Israel in the social media spaces, just using everyday words like love and defend and God and pray and everything like that. Nothing too hard. But Hananya, great to have you with us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes. Now, we've got a little some bio notes that I want to give first. That Hananya Naftali is this bio says you're a social media star. I would have to vouch for that, and pro-Israel influencer, activist, which you're using social media platforms to raise awareness about anti-Semitism, the BDS movement, boycott, divest, and sanction Israel, the Iranian threat, and other threats that the Jewish people and Israel confront on a daily basis. And I think some people may not know it, but you've been retained for several years now by Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu as a consultant and advisor, and every day helping him also maintain his pages, his message, but also giving you some leeway and maybe inside information for you to help fight your battle. That's quite a position to have, because he's a great communicator, and I think he saw something in you in that. That's tremendous.
Praise God. Praise God. I'm just happy to be able to be in the right position in the right time, and do everything that I can for the sake of Israel. And again, all the glory goes to God.
Amen. Amen. Look, before we really get into your background and how you got into this, I'm going to ask our team to play one of your recent, I guess it's a YouTube video that gives a sample of the work you're doing. If you haven't seen Hananya Naftali in action, cue, please.
We are right here. You know what? Actually, we don't need this map. This is the Gaza Strip right there behind me, and a few kilometers or miles that way is Egypt. Not too long ago, 1,000 rockets were launched from the Gaza Strip into Israel. That was not so nice of them. But the reality for people over there on the other side of the border is terrible. Don't get me wrong. The Gaza Strip has long been plagued by the presence of terror organizations whose ultimate goal is the destruction of Israel, even at the cost of innocent Palestinian civilians. But sometimes, only sometimes, the media forgets to mention that we Israelis also endure the consequences of these terror organizations, Hamas and Islamic Jihad. Well, to be honest, it's not sometimes, it's a pattern. They say that Gaza is under Israeli siege and therefore terror tunnels are acceptable because they use them to smuggle food among other stuff. They say there is a blockade imposed on Gaza from air, land, and sea. They say Gaza is the largest open prison on planet Earth. Now, to someone that has never been here, that sounds bad because it sounds like Israel is the oppressor because we are stronger. We are no longer the underdog, right? They say that it's not fair because Israel has F-16s and Iron Domes, and what do they have? It almost sounds like they expect us to share with our enemies some of our military equipment so that we are equal and only then fight. But the answer, it lies a few clicks from here in Egypt. Egypt also shares a border with Gaza. If Israel is the problem in this conflict, then why does Egypt build a high security wall on its border with Gaza? If Israel is the oppressor in Gaza, then why Egypt is also closing its border crossing with Gaza? Maybe because Israel is not the problem here, but the terror groups over there, Hamas and Islamic Jihad, inside of the Gaza Strip. Both Israel and Egypt chose to build security walls to protect its own people from Gaza's radicals. And you know to whom everything I just said is not news? The very Palestinians who live right there in the Gaza Strip. They know it all. The mainstream media says Israel is responsible for poverty in Gaza, while Israel is actually providing Gaza with water and electricity, and every day tons of trucks enter Gaza from Israel with food, medicine, fuel, and whatnot. And let me tell you a secret, Israel is a blessing to the people in Gaza. Every day, around 20,000 Palestinian workers cross the border from Gaza to Israel in order to work here. Now, if we were so bad, wouldn't they avoid coming and working for Israelis here? But please understand this. We Israelis don't hate the Palestinians. We have no business in hating them. I care for them as an Israeli. I cared for them when I served here in the Israeli army as well. Why? Because I knew that they are not my enemy. In fact, we have a mutual enemy, and it's the terrorist organizations that have taken over Gaza. When I was a soldier in the Israeli army, stationed here on the border with Gaza, you think I enjoyed being here? You think I gladly expected for conflict to occur? Heck no. But we live in a different reality here in Israel, where we have to join the Israeli army once we finish high school, because we have some crazy neighbors that seek our destruction every day. Quite different than your reality, I assume. So next time people tell you about some Israeli siege on the Gaza Strip, point them to Egypt's border with Gaza. And don't forget to share this video with as many people as possible, because we live in a world filled with lies and deception about my country, about our Israel. Thank you.
So you can see from those two videos what the Ministry of ICEJ is doing to defend Israel and the Jewish people. So just take a look at their YouTube page and you get the small videos, but also you get the web seminars as well on important issues that affect Israel and the Jewish people today, particularly as the nation of Israel is at war. Jacob, for any young people watching this program and they want to become a social media warrior, they want to engage in the fight as Patrick's engaged in the fight to defend Israel and the Jewish people, share how they can do that on social media, but also how they can do that through the International Christian Embassy, Jerusalem, UK.
I think first of all, don't be intimidated, don't be afraid in that space to follow content, to like content, to even create content, and to also just share with your friends and share with others about kind of what you've been hearing, what you've been viewing, and starting conversations. Don't be afraid to write a comment, because it can feel very intimidating. There is a lot of vitriol out there, but yeah, I would just say don't be afraid, jump right in, and in terms of how you can be involved with ICEJ is follow and like and also like comment and if you want to create more content, if you want to create content as well, then be in touch and we can talk about that.
Excellent. And Patrick, for our viewers watching, just share with us how they can support the ministry of ICEJ UK on various social media platforms.
Sure, yeah. Follow our accounts, get involved. The whole point of social media is to be social on the media. So comment and like and jump in, because we've got, especially on TikTok and YouTube especially, there's plenty of nasty little people throwing their views around. So let's bolster our side a little bit and share your views too. And like Jacob said, that they play the intimidation game, but once you realize it's a lot of keyboard warriors and they're just kind of gutturally releasing all their feelings, you just get over it and crack on with life and say thank you for fueling further reach on the internet from your anger.
Excellent. That's really good advice. Thank you, Patrick. Jacob, as an Israeli and someone who's lived in Israel with an incredible kind of Jewish heritage as you've got, what does it mean for you to know there are so many projects supporting Israel and the Jewish people through this pro-Israel ministry that is the International Christian Embassy?
Yeah, I mean, it means so much. I think it's hard sometimes to really fully comprehend what people go through in Israel, certainly when they live in some of these border towns, you know, in the south and in the north. I think I remember a statistic that in Sderot, in the south, more than 50% of children have PTSD from the rocket attacks that come, and that's just a normal. That's just what they live with, you know. And I remember when I was there, we would go and place bomb shelters down there and in the playgrounds and things like that. And it's just the reality. So when an organization like ICEJ comes and really invests in the lives of these people, it sends such a strong supportive message and can be really life-changing for so many Israelis.
Yeah, and Patrick, I mean, we started the program talking about your experience in helping to refurbish the home of a Holocaust survivor. Just share with us how the projects that the Ministry of ICEJ UK help to support in Israel really do make a massive difference in the lives of the Israeli people, particularly now when Israel feels alone and isolated in the world.
Yeah, it's amazing to watch the work ICEJ does in Israel, because from my observation, it's very strategic in what they do. It's very tip of the spear in allocating the resources that the ICEJ receives in the best possible, like getting, you know, for lack of a better, getting the best bang for your buck. Because they're, the way they place bomb shelters, and then they're looking after the greatest people of the 20th century, the Holocaust survivors, and then they're ministering to the youth of Israel, of evacuated families and stuff, to invest in the future of Israel. It's a really powerful ministry, and the way they set everything up to minister to Israel is it's perfect. The leverage and the ROI is amazing.
Excellent. And Jacob, do you want to share with us what it means to be part of the ICEJ UK, part of the team, supporting Israel and really defending Israel and really explaining the righteousness of Israel's cause through social media?
Yeah, it means a lot. It means a lot to be involved, you know, in an organization that's doing all of this work on the ground, making such an impact, and having the opportunity to communicate that in the social media space. I think there's a lot of potential there to really reach a lot more people on social media, a lot more young people with the work that ICEJ are doing, and I'm personally very honoured to be able to be a part of the team and to be able to help that process happen.
Excellent. And Patrick, for any viewers watching today's programme, they want to get involved, they want to support the ministry of ICEJ in blessing Israel and the Jewish people, how can they do that?
Yeah, well, you know, like we said before, go and follow our social media accounts, start to feel out what we're talking about, go to the website, see the causes that are happening. If you're watching this in the UK, there's events that happen year-round, so coming to them, getting educated from some of the best teachers and preachers and stellar people in all different spaces that are invited. And then, you know, of course, some go by giving and some give by going. So if you can't go, then go by giving. And you can pick which cause you want to send finances to. And you want to donate to a bomb shelter to save lives on the border, do that. You want to donate to the Holocaust home because you want to boost the quality of life for wonderful, beautiful Holocaust survivors, do that. You can pick which one resonates the most. So there's plenty of options for everyone.
Yeah, and Jacob, this is a time really where we can't afford to be silent, can we, when it comes to knowing what the scriptures say about Israel and the Jewish people, and that we've got to speak up. Share with us how, for example, it's so important, especially at this time, to support a ministry like the International Christian Embassy, Jerusalem, UK, that are blessing Israel and blessing the Jewish people, but also telling the truth of Israel's cause.
Yeah, it's really, really important. It's important to, if that's something that you are passionate about, it's really important to get alongside an organisation like ICEJ who have the connections there in Israel and have the projects that they're running, and it just gives you a great way to be involved. As Patrick said, to go or to give or to be involved in some way. It's just a great outlet and a great way to connect yourself into what the Lord's doing in Israel through ICEJ.
Amen to that. And Patrick, how important is it for Christians of your generation, both your generations actually, to take up that mantle and to know that Israel is a nation that's been fulfilled in fulfillment of biblical prophecy? So it's literally been built on the words of the prophets. And literally we see the Bible come alive when we go to Israel and we see these ancient prophecies given by Isaiah and Jeremiah, and how as millennial Christians, you can actually be part of that project through ICEJ UK.
Yeah, it's important that millennials start to speak out. I don't think our generation's really been tested in what we believe and how much we're willing to give for what we say is true. So I think this will toughen our generation up and really sift out and let us see who we really are when we put the pedal to the metal. So speak up for Israel and speak up for the people of the book.
And you've both done that very well today. So Patrick and Jacob, thank you so much for being our guests on Jerusalem Dispatch, ICEJ UK for this month. And I want to thank you for watching this programme at home. It's so vital, particularly for millennials and Generation Z, to come out and defend Israel on social media. And you can do that through the International Christian Embassy, Jerusalem UK. So thank you for watching Jerusalem Dispatch.
Catch the wind, he's carrying